Thank you for joining us for the Miami Valley Salute to Veterans. I'm Cindy LaPointe-Dafler, a volunteer host for the Miami Valley Communications Council. My husband was killed in Vietnam in 1969. He was posthumously awarded the Medal of Honor. Being around our veterans and talking with them, hearing their stories and their thoughts, is my way of honoring my husband's legacy. We hope that hearing these memories from the veterans of our community will help us all better understand the dedication of those who served. Today we're talking with Brandon McClain of Dayton, Ohio, an Army veteran who served from 2003 to 2009. He will tell us the story of his time in the military. Thank you for being here today, Brandon.
Thank you so much, Cindy.
When you went into the military, why did you choose that branch, and why did you go into the military?
As a much younger man, actually as a teenager, 17 years old, it was a couple years after 9/11. I come from a family of service members, and I would talk to them about their experiences, and to the extent that they were willing to talk to them, I always cherished their memories and their stories, and they were so duty-oriented. And when 9/11 happened, I just felt like that there was more that I could do. There was something that I needed to do to be able to join the ranks of our military service. Was something that I had pondered over. I talked to my mother at the time. We had a shortage of troops in America. If you remember, they even were talking about, trying to fluctuate the ages to see if we could get younger members into the military. And so I actually went in at the age of 17 with my mother's permission.
Wow.
Yes, and I'll never forget, over dinner, we sat down and we talked. Come from a single parent household. It was my mother, my grandmother, and I. We sat down, we talked, and my mother said, "Are you sure?" I said, "I'm certain." She says, "This is very serious." And I said, "I understand." And the next day, we went to the recruiter, and I joined up. And in hindsight, when I think back of what brought me there, obviously I had a strong upbringing in service. My mother was a social worker. My grandmother was a nurse. My father was in the military. My Uncle Charles, a Vietnam vet. I think serving others, the old adage is the price that we all pay for our time here on earth. And that was the way I was brought up, following behind my grandmother and mother, going from point A to point B. My grandmother and mom would cook for people in the community who couldn't cook for themselves. And I just remember being like, why am I not outside riding my bike? And they were like, there's time for that, but this is a part of your life too. And so when I got old enough, it was just something that just instinctively I felt that, I need to also, be prepared to stand up for those who couldn't stand up for themselves. And so that kind of upbringing is what led me into the military.
And you chose Army because?
Well, I chose the Army and specifically the Army National Guard in large part because I had a couple friends who had went into some of the other branches, and I had talked to the recruiter, and I felt like that was what appealed to me more at that time in my life. I had a few friends who had also went into the Army, a couple friends who had went into the Army National Guard and the Army Reserves, and they just talked about, basic training, and, some had went to Fort Jackson, and some had went to, at the time, Fort Leonard Wood. And, I said, this is what I want to experience. They would talk about the gas chamber and just different, yes, the things.
And you're going, that sounds like fun.
Well, not exactly, but I was like, just, hearing them and,
Sure.
I just remember, wanting to also have those type of experiences, or at least I thought at the time, right? And, I ended up going into the military and the Army National Guard, and then my basic training was at Fort Knox, Kentucky.
Fort Knox, okay.
Yes.
Had you been away from home before?
That was my first time being away from home. I remember my first day like it was yesterday. We arrived on what people call affectionately a crop duster, a very small, very small plane. And I was like, is this thing gonna fall out of the sky? It was just shaking.
Had you been in a plane before?
One time
Okay.
I had been in a plane, and it was, a standard commercial, liner. We had flew somewhere for a family reunion one time before in my life. And the next thing I know, I'm on this little crop duster with like what probably seemed like 8 seats. Like we almost were stacked on top of each other, and it's shaking like this.
Oh my God.
And I'm like, what is going on? How'd I get here? And then we landed. It was in the early part of the afternoon. It was completely silent. And then when we stepped off and got on the bus ride was silent, looked out the windows, and then we pulled up. And then when we stepped off that bus, they were right here at our heads, pick up that bag. And I was just like, oh my God, what have I got myself into? Yes.
What a first impression.
Yeah, first impressions are everything. So,
well, when you went in, what was your MOS?
My first MOS was 88 Mike, which was truck driver.
Okay.
And at the time, that was, we were suffering as a nation a number of casualties from roadside bombs. Mm-hmm. And I've always been interested in the multitude of different vehicles and, different transportation means that the military has. And so the Army was like, hey, this is, you can drive everything essentially except a tank. And so I actually had a CDL for a little while as well.
Okay.
Yep. Learned how to drive tractor trailer trucks in the military.
Oh, cool.
Yep. So that was my first MOS. I ended up eventually switching over to quartermaster. And with that, I did a lot of admin and cook, making sure, that people had the actual resources that they needed to be successful on their missions. And, that was an experience as well, seeing the logistical side, if you will, aside from, what the mission needs to be successful. I think at that young age, it was important for me to see that as well.
Certainly. So you quit driving trucks and you became a quartermaster, which is a very important job too. You told us where you went for basic. Where did you go for your advanced training? I
went to Fort Leonard Wood.
Okay.
And, and to put this in perspective, so Kentucky was a big shock to me because I am a Dayton transplant. So Dayton is my adopted home, but I'm actually born and raised in North Carolina.
Oh, okay.
And so, I was used to sunny and mild weather where if the weather thought about snowing, the city would close down for, a couple weeks.
Yeah.
And, boom, all of a sudden I'm in, Kentucky, first time away from home. And to be honest with you, that was the first time I had actually observed snow stick to the ground. Does not happen in North Carolina that often. Is there today, is gone probably by this evening. And so I was like, what kind of snow is this? And so Fort Leonard Wood, which is in Missouri, was definitely a different kind of situation. It was bone-chilling cold. And, I remember a lot of days of PT in, freezing, sub-freezing, in shorts and a t-shirt. And, something about that in the morning that wakes you up that you never forget. And, great experience there. And, aside from the cold, it was, it was good.
Yeah. What did you think about basic training? Was it difficult for you or?
I think it was challenging for all of us at that time.
Yeah.
Like I said, this is, a couple years after 9/11. And I believe that there was a stillness, a level of seriousness that was present. I remember we had, my drill sergeant is Drill Sergeant Sid Acero and Drill Sergeant Craig, and they would tell us, they said, you need to take everything serious because we're preparing you for battle. And, that resonated with a lot of us because, that was the truth.
Mm-hmm.
That literally was the circumstance that our nation was facing at that time. And, I just remember, just trying to get the most I could out of every exercise that we did, out of every field operation that we performed, just trying to make sure I picked up as many skills as possible, because I'm like, I don't know when and if I'll ever need this, but certainly I'd rather have and not need than to need and not have.
Absolutely. What was the best part of your training?
The last day, the last day finishing,
That makes sense.
basic training was, God, it was very, it was tough for me, very difficult. About halfway through, every Sunday I would have a conversation with my grandmother and my mom. We would talk on the phone. And this one specific Sunday, I called my mother, and I could just tell she was just very burdened. And I asked her what was wrong. And at the time, she tells me that she had recently received a diagnosis of lung cancer.
Oh, my God.
And, so here I am. I'm 17 years old. I'm away from home at the first time. And my mom is sick with lung cancer. And, I can't get back to her. There's really nothing I can do. And I didn't really know what to do. I was really very much at a just a loss of, I can't even say a loss of words. It was so much bigger than that. I was at a loss of motivation and just a loss of just really direction. I just really didn't know what to do. And I told my drill sergeant, and we talked to my mother, and he said, if you want, I'm sure, this is obviously a qualifying event. You can go be with your mother and you can come back. And my mom said, you already been here 6 weeks or however long I had been gone. And she said, you just need to go ahead and see it through. And, there's nothing you can do for me at this point. The best thing you can do for me is finish, and I'll be at the graduation, and that'll give us both something to look forward to.
Oh.
And that stuck with me because it taught me a lot about myself at a young age and about the importance of persevering, even against some of the most extreme conditions, many of which are out of our control, and we don't really know what our next move is. Sometimes, the next move is just moving forward.
Mm. Oh, boy.
Yeah.
That's a very serious thing. What was the worst part?
My mother, when we finished, she was at my graduation. She had been on, chemo and radiation, and I didn't really recognize her.
Oh.
And then I only got to spend a couple hours with her, and I had to, I rode a bus from Kentucky to Missouri,
Mm-hmm.
and and then reflected on that the whole bus ride. That was tough. Made a lot of good friends in basic training. One individual, he had a mental break, and that was a different situation. He was a young father and a young husband, and I think he had received some bad news from home, and that was the other one. But I won't get too much into that because that's not really my story to tell.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
Does any instructor in particular stand out in your memories?
We had one instructor who was training to be a world-class level distance runner. And he had foregone that to serve.
Oh.
And his dedication, I think, is something that will always stand out to me. We all have plans, but we know obviously God has more plans for us. And obviously, the old adage is that, if you want to hear God laugh, tell him your plans, right? The fact that he was willing to put forward something that he dedicated his life to for a cause that was greater than him, for people he would never meet, I think was something that was more than commendable. That will always stick out to me. He will always stick out to me. Had another drill sergeant who Um, had seen combat a couple times before, and he um, was a sniper,
Mm.
airborne, air assault qualified. He had a Ranger tab. He was like and I mean, he was just uh, Drill Sergeant Birdsong, and I mean, he was just massive.
Wow.
I'm talking about probably would almost have to turn sideways to fit through that door. He was just massive. Um, his kindness and his ability, I think, to bring clarity to situations that people usually are distracted by, I think was something that he probably picked up from his experiences.
Oh,
Um, he just had a very calm demeanor about him.
Hmm.
And it was something, I mean, like I said, obviously, I'm still talking about today. I'd probably say those two individuals probably had the greatest impact on me because, in both, regardless of what your plans are, we all ultimately have to yield to plans that are even greater than ours.
Wow. What equipment did you qualify for?
I was issued an M16 as all soldiers, and as far as for the as far as for other licensures, I think I indicated earlier had learned how to drive tractor trailer trucks. I learned how to drive them on icy roads.
Oh,
Yes,
well,
and
that's
so
important when you're.
yeah, I guess. I mean, I said, wow, these are, it's a lot different from taking that driver's ed course. I said, these are far from, ideal or pristine conditions. But, that's something I just have to laugh about. As far as for other equipment, driving just about everything, I've been behind the wheel of just about anything and everything in my time except a tank.
Yeah.
That was a different MOS, or
Right.
military occupational specialty, and so I did not have the pleasure, but everything else I've driven and pushed around.
And you appreciated that, I guess.
I did. I'd rather drive than ride. That's what I learned, and that actually is true even today.
Yes.
Because when you're riding, so much is out of your control, and so what I learned about myself is that I'm a human, which means I am perfectly imperfect. However, it also means that I know that if I can do my best, then sometimes I'm going to get things right, and sometimes I'm going to get things wrong, and I can live with that.
If you're just joining us, this is Miami Valley Communications Council Salute to Veterans podcast. I'm your host, Cindy LaPointe-Dafler, and today we're talking with Army veteran Brandon McClain. What was your first assignment after training?
When I was at Fort Leonard Wood, we had actually received notification that the president at the time was mobilizing different parts of that base, and there was going to be a mass deployment. Around that same time, my mother's health took a turn for the worse, and I actually did have to go home, and ended up. That's actually how I found my way into the National Guard.
Okay.
Yep, and my mom, her health had took a turn, and they weren't sure how much longer she was going to make it, and so around December, I ended up coming home. I had been gone for about 7 months. Came home in December, and I had plans. I was like, I'm gonna try to help my mother, best I can, and my mom. Just the type of person she was, she goes, "You're not about to sit around here and watch me die." And I said, that's why I came home, and was to be with you and to help you. And she says, well, she goes, you'll have to help me, and I'm not done living yet. Now, what's interesting about this is that the doctors, I learned later on, had given her a poor prognosis at the time, and she ended up living on for about 2.5 years past that point. Yeah. I ended up being able to transition into a National Guard unit, and would go to my drills, and was assigned to the 105th MP Battalion, which I think was very instrumental, I think, in my development as a young person, in being able to see how to properly, maintain decorum, but also, how to serve, and how to serve others. Stateside duties, and then also go to school. And so it's funny when I look back, because I've probably been in school more and longer than I would have liked. But at the end of the day, none of those experiences I would give up. When I went to my undergraduate, which is UNC Pembroke, University of North Carolina at Pembroke, my mother, we got very close. She would come see me often, and she passed away about a month before my graduation.
Oh.
Yep. She seen me as far as she could, but the way watching her live, and I think oftentimes, even for those listening, we all can resonate with living, but I think you learn more about life by watching how people spend their last moments. Mm-hmm. My mother, at that point in time, was terminal, and she worked up until about 2 months before she passed.
Wow.
Yes, and they were like, you've got to go out on a medical retirement. And many people, when she passed, they didn't even know the extent of her sickness. And as a young person, it opened my eyes to the reality that if a terminally ill person can still abide by their life and meet conditions and take care of others, then me as a young able-bodied person really have no excuse for falling short. I need to always try my best. And so it taught me a lot about living, watching how she spent her last moments.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So you let me get this right. You grew up where?
In North Carolina.
Okay, North Carolina.
Yes. Uh-huh.
So that's where you went back home to.
At that time, yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. And what brought you to Dayton?
Well,
I always ask that when people come from somewhere else.
Yes. Well, and that's a fair question. So when my mother passed, I was at kind of a weird spot. I didn't really know what direction I should go, what that looks like. And one of the only few states I had been, aside from Kentucky, was Ohio. At the time, my cousin was the assistant basketball coach for the University of Cincinnati Lady Bearcat basketball team.
Okay.
And so I had visited Ohio a few times, and specifically Cincinnati, and really had liked Cincinnati. And so I moved to Cincinnati and, went to grad school at UC. So I have a master's in criminal justice. And then I had a counselor, at that time, I'm getting up some age, and he says, what do you plan on doing with this degree? And I said, I think I want to do something in the law. And he says, like what? And I said, I'm thinking I might want to go to law school. And he says, the thing about life is, he says, the longer you live, the more life. So he's like, that's the more, things happen.
Yeah.
And he goes, you're going to live, and you're going to, meet somebody, you're going to get married, you're going to have kids, and it'll be very difficult for you to chase your dreams. So if this is a dream that you have, you probably need to start chasing it.
Do it now, yeah.
Do it now. And so I had been interning at the City of Cincinnati Prosecutor's Office, and he had told me about University of Dayton and some other places. And so I ended up visiting Dayton. It was my first time in Dayton. And walked around the campus, talked to a couple people, and I said, I think there may be something here. Ended up applying, and that's how I got to Dayton. I went to law school at University of Dayton.
Oh, that's great.
Yep.
That's great. So were you still in the military at the time?
Yes, at that time I was getting ready to get out. So I did 6 years, and so that was getting around the time of 2009. In November is when I ended up getting out of the military, when my contractual term was up. Mm-hmm. And so I was honorably discharged, and roughly around the same time I started law school.
were you required to go to other assignments while you were in the military, and where were they?
Yes. So during the time of Hurricane Katrina, I was deployed to essentially what would be a stateside assignment. I was in Virginia, and at the time it was Fort Pickett, but that has been now declassified to Camp Pickett. We had, I imagine, thousands of vehicles and RVs and trucks that were donated, and it came on to try to offset some of the disaster that had happened from the hurricane. Yeah. And so there were still a lot of those resources that still remained. And I don't think a lot of folks know that. And so people had to, patrol those and to guard those. There had been, attempts at, theft, because you had brand new RVs that essentially, I imagine, had been wrote off. Mm-hmm. Nobody would be looking for them. And so they had to be patrolled. Mm-hmm. And, the perimeter was miles.
So you did the patrolling?
I did the patrolling and, was there for a few months. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Gosh.
I know. It's wild.
Anywhere else?
Nope. That for the main part. That is it.
That was it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what was your recollections of that experience?
I think particularly when I look back in hindsight, I think that oftentimes, particularly when I meet people or I speak to folks about their experiences, we all have different experiences, but nonetheless, they all are meaningful. And so a lot of times, I look at, some of the things from that point in time in my life and some of the different experiences. I was very fortunate to be able to serve and go to school and to serve and be able to grow as a person and also, as a soldier.
What was the best part of your military experience?
I was promoted to the rank of sergeant, E5. That meant a lot to me because my uncle, he served during a time when it was difficult in his job for him to pick up rank. And so that meant a lot to me.
Yes.
It meant a lot to our family.
Mm-hmm. I understand.
I'd probably say that was probably one of the proudest moments for me. I always try to have an outward perspective on life. We can do things where we are excellent today. We can be incredible today, but they're always better. If not tomorrow, then certainly the day before. And oftentimes we may not know those people, but it's always important for us to acknowledge them. And so it led me to really take a look at some of the sacrifices and different things and reflect on some of the stories that my uncle would tell me about of his experiences and the sacrifices that he made that maybe were not acknowledged.
Absolutely. Yes, I understand. Where were you when your service ended? So you were at home.
I was at home. I was in Ohio. By that time, I had a few months. I still had to go to drills. But at that point in time, I was just waiting for my term to terminate at that time.
Have you joined any veteran organizations or anything, or you're too busy?
Yes. Well, I am busy, but, I always believe that God gives to us so we can give to others. And so service is and will always be a major part of my life. Recently, I've been blessed to be a part of a phenomenal group of people. Actually, you are a part of the same group. The honor, our Medal of Honor group that we have that we are working to try to bring a Medal of Honor memorial, specifically the Honor Park that's located in the Wright Dunbar area. That honestly is really just so important for our community. I've been fortunate to do other veteran work in our community I implemented that veteran ID card program and some other types of veteran resources, and those things are very impactful. But, those who, many of which gave the ultimate sacrifice and received our nation's highest military honor, need to be memorialized and remembered in our community, and this memorial is going to do that. And so we've been meeting and working together for almost 2 years almost.
That's what I understand.
Almost 2 years. And we have raised about $1.1 million. We do have a $1.5 million overall goal. We have been blessed and fortunate to receive donations from the Kettering Foundation, Montgomery County, the city of Dayton, from Heidelberg, from a multitude of charities. We have been really fortunate to receive financial support from VFWs, including the state VFW charity, a host of individuals who have made contributions to come together to support this very important effort that spans of over about 7 counties. We have about 40 Medal of Honor recipients throughout our 7 counties: Montgomery, Miami, Darke, Clark, Greene, Warren, and Preble. Yes. And so of those 7 counties, of our nearly 40 Medal of Honor recipients, including your late husband, so important we do this work because that sacrifice has to be uplifted. It must never be forgotten. And so we're all busy, but we can't be too busy to recognize those who were willing to do anything and everything for us.
Yes, that's true. Is there anything you have always wanted to share about your service or veteran experience that you haven't shared?
This is, I think, more of just kind of a public service announcement for those who are listening as opposed to those who have served.
Certainly.
I look at my service, and I know other veterans and, quite frankly, even their families look at that service as just a starting point. Mm-hmm. People don't stop serving when they are honorably discharged. In fact, arguably, that was the cornerstone of their service. But once people know that you have a service heart, it seems like those type of issues and people who are being afflicted and impacted find you. They are attracted to you, and you're attracted to them because that is who you are. And so I would just encourage not just my brothers and sisters in military service, but just anyone who's listening to always have an attentive ear and an open heart for listening to other people and their needs. I believe the good book says we are supposed to treat the needs of the people as holy. Mm-hmm. And I believe that's because at the end of the day, we all are in need and we all are able to help each other. And so I think that if we can just keep that at the forefront, we can improve our communities, we can improve our neighborhoods, we can improve each and every facet of our life if we just respect the fact that each one of us has a different answer to a problem that all of us have experienced or will experience.
Yeah. You serve the community in many ways. What is your main job? Explain that to our audience.
Yes. I'm a magistrate and acting judge in Dayton Municipal Court. So from day to day, I preside over criminal, civil, traffic cases. Criminal cases could be the first stage of felony cases. It could be everything from OVIs to domestic violence to assault to criminal damaging to mischief. I also do all the traffic cases for the city of Dayton, all the civil cases that are $15,000 and under, including garnishments, attachments, debtors examinations. Evictions are a very big part of civil dockets. We probably process more evictions probably than, I certainly know we process more evictions than any other municipality in Montgomery County. And I believe that overall in the state of Ohio, we're number 4, number 5. And so we see a lot of our neighbors a lot of people who are impacted by the justice system in court. I'm honored to serve in that capacity. We have a number of specialty dockets that I've also been able to be a part of, including our mental health docket. I believe it's very important that we remove the stigma that's associated with mental health, so that way we can start getting people stabilized and get them to a point where they can be productive and be able to feel accepted in our community. And I believe that the way we break down that stigma is that we begin to start having difficult conversations. Those are conversations that oftentimes people know need to take place, but they're scared to choose the words to make them become a reality. We need to start having those conversations, because I promise you, what impacts you impacts me. What affects one person affects all people, because we're all interrelated. We're all interconnected. We're not that much different. We all want the same things out of life. We all want the same things for our family and our children. And so if we can just begin to start having those type of conversations, I believe we'll do a great world of good in our community.
Absolutely. I appreciate your service to the community. And
thank you. I'm honored to serve.
What would you like people to remember from your story?
I have been fortunate over the last, so funny, I've been in public service my whole life. People are like, you're young. Yeah, I've been serving since I was, I started in public service when I was 17 years old. And, I'm still in public service. I'm a young man. I'm not the youngest man, but I'm certainly not as young as I used to be. I did 2 terms in county government as a county recorder. I have been on the bench. This is my second stint. Overall, I've been on the bench for 4 years. I presided over thousands of cases. As an attorney, I was a public defender, so I represented the indigent. I stood beside hundreds. I have been very fortunate, aside from being a soldier and an attorney and a magistrate and an acting judge. I have wore a multitude of different hats. I've served in the roles in different capacities. Regardless of the role or capacity that we occupy, the most important role we all have is that as a concerned citizen. We all can occupy that role. That is where we are most powerful. That is where we are most seen. And that is where we are most effective. Concerned citizens in our community can change anything and all, because we can work together for a common goal.
That's great.
So
Yes.
that's what I would want people to be left with, is that regardless of the hat you may wear in your day-to-day, the most important role that we all have is that as a concerned citizen. We all can dictate our level of involvement, which means we all can identify solutions and work together to implement them for the better of the community.
Yep. That's very good. That's very good. Is there anything else that you have left out that you would like to say?
Yes. If you are listening and you want to help support our Medal of Honor efforts to bring a memorial to Honor Park, to honor the nearly 40 Medal of Honor recipients we have throughout our 7-county radius, contact the Dayton Foundation. This is a joint collective community effort, and only together can it be successful.
Absolutely. And this monument will go into a park that is at 3rd Street and Edwin C. Moses Boulevard. There are other memorials there now from World War I and World War II, and it's a beautiful little park, and it will be more beautiful. It's catty-cornered to the Wright brothers airplane artwork. It was moved from downtown.
That's right.
Yeah. And so it's the area there is building up beautifully.
Yes. We are going to be breaking ground, I believe, here at the end of this summer. And God willing, we will finish up shortly thereafter.
Yes. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much. It's been my pleasure.
I appreciate it.